Facing cancer doesn't mean you are now only the cancer patient. So often we hear those with cancer share the need to feel seen, to feel understood, and not feel alone. So whether you are facing cancer yourself or supporting someone who is, join us. My name is Susan Larkin. We are Facing Cancer Together. What the heck is psychosocial support? It can be emotional support, spiritual, overall well-being, and even practical support. Dr. Margaret Fitch is back with some of our special guests to share just how important these supports are. Here's Jules Wish.
It's so great to have family and friends that are there for you. And I'm so thankful for them. But I think you need people that have cancer in your life too, because it's just a different kind of support system. It's someone that knows exactly what you're going through, and they're just able to provide insight and exchange info on treatments or, any type of thing that could be helpful for you.
And let's hear from Michael Suba.
It was my buddies and my girlfriend. And I don't know, I can only speak to my experience. My guys basically supported me by giving me distractions. One thing I didn't want to do was dwell on it. I would have my chemo every second Friday. And in between it, I really just didn't want to deal with it. So, we'd go to the cottage, we'd go to the pub, we'd do this, we'd hang out and play hearts and stuff. We really wouldn't talk about it because there wasn't anything to talk about. There was, that was that. I would just be given distractions to keep my mind off it. And I'm very grateful to this day. I remember there's actually a photograph it's still on the wall at my cottage from that summer. It was the August long weekend, and I had a bunch of pals up, and somebody took a picture of me and a couple of my buddies, and I'm still very close friends, but they were my groomsmen on the dock looking out onto the river. And one of my buddies from Montreal, he was sitting to my left. You could see on his T-shirt, it said "Pas de courage, pas de gloire." No guts, no glory. And it's on my wall. And it's sometimes I'll take a look at it and I'll remember that wonderful weekend where I didn't think about cancer. That was my way of dealing with it. And I guess it's an individual thing. I just have to say that I was very fortunate to have a group of people around me that instinctively knew what was best for me, which was great. It was odd. A couple of years afterwards, I had the father of a former girlfriend of mine. He had a friend of his that was going through chemo. And he asked my advice on what he should talk to him about, what he should do, and how he didn't want to put a foot wrong. He really cared about this friend of his, and he wanted to help him. And I just said, you know what? Just hang out with him. If he wants to talk about it, great. If he's not talking about it, talk about something else. Go shoot some pool or something. Just be there.
And now let's hear from Michelle Sylvain.
Some people, I get it, they don't want to talk about it, and to each their own. But you'd be amazed if you let your walls come down a little bit, and not just for others, but for you. Because getting it off your chest doesn't mean that it's just sitting with you. It means there are other people that you could talk about it with. I could get into moods where I feel pity for myself and I feel just sad at times. And that's kind of how this whole thing goes. You have ups and you have downs, where some days you feel like you can take on the world. And then other days you just need to have a pity party and you just need to cry it out, because you do have moments of why me? And why is this happening to me? And you compare yourself to other people sometimes, which you should never do, but you look at some people that and this person smokes every day and eats like crap, and here I am eating quinoa, and I've always been so conscious of everything that I was trying to put healthy things in my body, and here I am, don't smoke, don't barely drink, but you can't do that because you drive yourself crazy. You're allowed to feel the way you're feeling. But you're going to be okay. In the long run, this will be a blip on the radar. And anybody that you have in your life who's been touched by cancer, my boss at work, who's one of my greatest friends too, her sister went through colon cancer. So she was able to tell me, look, you need to get a therapist now because you're going to need it. If you don't have many people in your life that you can talk to who have been through this, who understand what it's like, get a therapist. And I talked to her and asked how her sister's journey went. You want to know from people who have been through it, because there's this odd feeling of like, they got through it, so I'm going to get through it. Like this woman at Women's College Hospital, 12 years out, is doing great, right? And that's inspiration to me because it's telling me I can be 12 years out from this and living a great life. And I just have to suck it up for about a year and a half and do what I need to do and be uncomfortable and be in pain and have a mental toll on my self-esteem and all of that. But I'll be okay afterwards.
Let's now return to our chat with Dr. Margaret Fitch. As part of psychosocial support, there's a lot of supportive care organizations, a lot of supportive care groups, supportive care activities that are there. How do you define supportive care and why is it crucial in someone's experience as they go through cancer treatment?
We need to recognize that individuals are a combination, a composite of physical, emotional, social, psychological, cognitive realities. We're not just one dimension. When we're faced with a life-threatening illness, any illness really, but particularly a life-threatening illness, there is going to be an impact on all of those dimensions. Having cancer is not just about a tumor that is a physical impact. There is an emotional reaction. There is a social reaction. It influences your relationship with your friends and your family. So when I think about supportive care, I think about any type of intervention or assistance that is different than the tumor care. So the tumor care would be the surgery, the chemotherapy, the radiation. But anything else that we are providing assistance around, be it relationships, be it work-related problems, may it be financial issues, all of those other kinds of things fall under that large umbrella that is called supportive care. And really the intention is to try to help the person understand the impact, understand the reality of what's happening to them, help them so they don't feel alone in the situation, and then find strategies that work for them in terms of coping with the situation. There may be new knowledge, there may be new skills they need, and learning those kinds of things so that they can manage and really move through the experience with a sense of control, a sense of personal integrity, and moving in the direction that they would prefer. Talking with other individuals who are going through the same situation has been tremendously helpful for many individuals. And the idea of peer support or being involved either one-on-one or in a group so that you can share experiences and talk with one another about how difficult it is. Actually, that notion of just being able to share how difficult the situation is can in itself be helpful.
And I think it's so interesting. Time and time again, we hear people that will say, I have a strong support network, really help, thankful for the support in their lives. And yet, how important it is for them to then talk to others facing the same illness or the same diagnosis. Even though they may have a really strong support network, it's different from talking to somebody who's going through a similar experience.
Yes, I would concur. I remember some of the early work that my colleagues and I did trying to track what was happening in support meetings or in support groups. And I remember some of our early work with breast cancer survivors. They would say, when I'm in a room with other women who have gone through the same thing, I sometimes don't even have to talk because I know that it's there. So there's a sense of support that's almost nonverbal by being in a room, in a place where other people have gone through the same experience. And I think the reality is that as you go through an experience, even though you are going through something that is unique for you, there may be common elements with other people, but there's almost a relief in being able to say what you want to say what you're feeling, and know that the other people are not going to judge you. They're not going to tell you that everything's going to be all right, that no, don't cry about the situation, but they're ready to be there with you and go through the tough times. So I think that that's one of the elements of being involved in a support group. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to hide your feelings. And the other people in the room are going to be with you.
You were talking about that body language being part of it. Have you noticed a difference? Because I know there's also support groups where it's about action. It's about doing something. What have you noticed in kind of the differences in the different support groups versus, talking versus those action-oriented groups?
Interesting that you should ask that. I learned about action-oriented groups from survivors themselves. And some individuals will say, I find it difficult to just sit and talk about my feelings. Some people say, I just don't know how to do that. But if I'm doing something else, then it kind of distracts me from worrying about talking. And so the idea of painting or being involved in clay sculpturing, or sometimes men have actually been involved in baseball or in golf. And the idea that you can be out on the green and walking between the tees and talk as you go sometimes is much easier for some individuals than sitting around a table or sitting around a group and just focused on talking about feelings. That idea of doing something else at the same time just helps you get over the hurdle a little bit.
That's great. We now have people that are living with cancer. So the cancer is still there, but they are living with cancer. And that's a change and a shift, I think, for society. People don't know, if someone says, oh, I'm done cancer treatment, the thought would be, oh, great, you're cured, you're done treatment. Well, no, I'm living with cancer. And I think that's new for those people. And it's new for kind of us as a society to understand, how do we then support somebody living with cancer?
Yes, I think that's an excellent observation to make. And clearly something we're seeing now that we were not seeing to the same extent in the past. The idea that we have a survivorship movement has really come out of this reality that individuals are receiving treatment that allows them to live with the cancer. And in that regard, it becomes more of a chronic illness. So if you think of diabetes, once diagnosed, one has to live with it for the rest of one's life. But you have interventions that are helping you maintain a quality of life. And this is the same principle, if you will, with the idea of living with cancer. And in that regard, then we also think about the idea that there may be periods when there is no clinical evidence of the disease, but then a recurrence when suddenly we are able to see the clinical evidence again. So sort of rise and fall in terms of the evidence of the cancer being present. But some individuals have lived many, many years with this situation. And the challenge, as you say, is being able to live with that uncertainty, being able to shift one's attention to say, I need to be doing what will bring me joy, what will bring me quality of life, and focus on living as opposed to focusing on the disease itself. So some of the interventions that we have been using in the past for other chronic illnesses are ones that we can think about now, drawing into the cancer world and making use of in the cancer world. It's not as if we have to start from square zero to figure out the interventions and the support that would be helpful. I think we can turn to some of the literature, the research we have in the other fields.
And that's a whole other space for psychosocial support as well, for these people, for their caregivers, for everyone around them.
Absolutely, yes. And I mentioned earlier the study that we did with Canadian survivors. And that was really the first time in Canada that we had looked at the interval 1 to 3 years after finishing treatment. And we had almost 13,000 responses. So it was a large data set that was mined. And I think that it was clear from those data that individuals do have residual impact. Even if there's no clinical evidence of the cancer itself, there still may be challenges in terms of mobility or changes in the way the body functions or the body works. But there are also relationship changes and there are social changes, and some of that adaptation is required over a period of time. Fatigue is one of the things that people will talk about. And although the level of fatigue might be most or highest during the treatment time or immediately after the treatment time, and gradually it sort of dissipates and people find their energy again to some, but it takes time. In some of those data, people were writing, I never realized it was going to take me quite so long to actually find my energy again and get back on my feet. So even though the treatment is over and the reality of that treatment, that daily pattern of having to get radiation or the cycles associated with chemotherapy, that's behind them. But the experience doesn't quite let go for a period of time. And I do think that one of the phenomenal directions for cancer care over the course of my career, as I've observed it, is that acknowledgement that cancer has an emotional impact, that everyone is different. They're going to react in different kinds of ways. There's no right and wrong about the reaction. But what is most helpful is for people to be able to share that, to be able to reach out and find the strategies, the support that's going to work for them, recognizing that all of us will want slightly different types of help at different points in time.
If you listened to episode 2 about the word normal, you heard a little bit from Michelle Audouin. Check out our next episode to hear more from Michelle on living with stage 4 cancer, menopause, kids, and how her experience as a Black woman with cancer led her to reveal more of herself than she ever thought she would. Please share the Facing Cancer Together podcast with anyone in your life facing a cancer diagnosis or caring for someone who is. And if you're interested in learning more about Look Good, Feel Better and our workshops, visit us at lgfb.ca.
This is Story Studio Network.